Well, hello. We are here again today to discuss our research question for week 5. Um, in chapter 6, Creswell and Puth outline the importance of beginning a qualitative research study by illustrating the effectiveness of clear research problem statements, purpose statements, and questions. Why do you think this is important? So I think we could probably start there. I think it's important because there's a lot of research out there, and we're going to be, just thinking there's kind of two ways to answer this, both as someone who wants to do qualitative research and as someone who's going to have to start reading a whole bunch of qualitative research to kind of, help me with my qualitative research. So having clear research problems, questions, and purpose as someone kind of beginning the lit review process, beginning to hone in on what I want to research, I don't want to spend a lot of time reading things that aren't going to be relevant, aren't going to guide me, or aren't the path that I'm looking to research. Additionally, so that speaks to the importance of the research problem statement and the purpose statements. You don't want to waste someone's time thinking that you're going to give them A and you give them B. One, it would kind of make you look amateurish. Two, it would waste people's time. And three, people aren't going to get to the people that you want to have your research, impact, aren't going to get to it if they don't know they should, because they don't understand who it's for. So those are some of the reasons that I think it's important to have clear and effective research problem statements, purpose statements, and questions.
Yeah, oh, sorry. I'll raise my hand now. So no, I don't know if you guys got this on the first assignment, but I had a criticism that it took Dr. B a while to understand what I was trying to say because I didn't clearly write an introduction. And looking, reading back, I was like, oh man, yeah, no, I thought I was, but I wasn't. And then I started thinking about other writing that I have done for um, rationale or things like this that I'm presenting to deans or stuff like that, and I'm like, oh man, like I think because I came from a creative writing background, I was I was trying to set the stage too much and not really get to the point of what I wanted to communicate. So after this last assignment, though, I ended up what I thought I did terrible. I thought it was awful, but I got right to the point. And Dr. B was like, "This is exactly it." And I'm like, "Oh man, I'm totally missing." Not missing. I was just like before. I was totally missing the goal of what a lot of this is. But and that's exactly what you said, Alisha. That we're going to be doing a lot of this research. Why waste people's time? Why waste our own time? Yep.
I think that's a great point. The purpose statement, reading right from the book, right? One of the Creswell and Paul says the purpose statement is important because it sets the stage for the entire article and conveys what the author hopes to accomplish. And I hadn't even really thought about the point that you two just made, but it is. There's a lot of reading and research being done in that abstract, right? If you're not talking about what it is in that abstract in those first 4 sentences, you may lose people. And so I hadn't even thought about that piece of it.
I agree. My first few my first 2 assignments, Dr. B also said you forgot to tell me what you're talking about. What I followed you, but I had to read to follow you. So, and then reading this chapter also makes me realize too is it's okay to get right to the point. You can go back and touch a little bit about other things, but also tell your reader what they to expect. Because again, like Alisha said, as we continue to read on to find things that will fit us for our future studies, we don't want to spend time reading 2, 3, maybe 4 pages, realize this is not going to help me. If I can find out paragraph 1, at the most 2, this is what I need, then that is really beneficial. And I definitely have been finding that out in this class. Just get to the point, and then you can go back to include a little bit of other things. You need to make a little gravy when you put on something.
Really quick, she did say that. I think during our face-to-face too. just get to the point. Like, just, you have to be succinct. I know in my master's program, that word succinct kept coming up in the whatever prompts and in the the assignments. Write a succinct 4 or 5 page or succinct 10 page. How do you do succinct in 10 pages? Whatever. But so that was something that I learned to do, and I started to veer off that a little bit. And I don't want to do that here, and I feel like I'm doing it now. So I'm gonna shut up. Thanks, Mike.
Actually, I love your point there. And thinking about writing a very long, large paper for this program, you can get really lost in the reason, because there's so much. So, thinking of the lit review, this idea that you're going on the bookshelf and you're just explaining what the bookshelf is. Well, what books are you including if not directly related to your purpose statement? And I'm going to kick this to Toni, because you've brought this up so many times. You're reading these dissertations, and why don't you share what you said about the purpose statement?
I feel like dissertation's purpose statement, and then reiterating, constantly telling us what that purpose statement is every paragraph. Although in the beginning you're like, why do we keep reading the same purpose statement? Now as we continue on, I see like, yeah, keep telling me the purpose statement, because as I continue on reading, maybe if it slips my mind, or maybe I'm like, where is the study going? I know that purpose statement again. What the point of the study, point of the research, how the research came about. So just keep letting the readers know what your plans are, continue on. And as we know, dissertations are longer. So that is also good, because as we read, we're like, okay, backtrack, what's going on? That backtrack really doesn't have to happen, because again, they're saying the same thing to us multiple ways, but it's the same thing.
So
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, just so many thoughts. If we think about putting it together, and again, I don't want us to get off track, but I'm thinking about these things are multiple chapters, right? And they're probably done and they're not done in it's not a linear process, probably. So, right, as they're writing chapter 4, they have to even remind themselves, like, what are we doing here? And so, anyway, that's something that just came up. That's it.
My sister sent me, I might have mentioned this before. She was doing research for her doctorate in history, and she sent me the first, I don't know, few chapters, and I'm like, that is the driest stuff I have ever read. And it was so to the point, and I'm like, are you, like, you're gonna publish this? And she's like, she just kind of rolled her eyes and was like, listen, I just got to get it out there. Does it make sense? And I'm like, it does, but man, I was falling asleep. But like, that's what it is. It's like, for people looking for that research, they need it to be right there. They're not interested in the gravy, so to speak. Like, like they're not, they want to get to that point. And I think that's where there is a substantial difference between the types of writing. And I think because I think most of us are used to not reading this like level of academic writing, that it's kind of like untraining yourself in a way, and then training it back up to being, trimming everything down and being very specific, and organized. Like the readings that I thought were really good were just like extremely organized. They told me where they were going. They told me what they were going to talk about, and then they expanded on it. And then it was like, thank you very much, move along. And that makes research a lot easier. Did you guys ever, like, I'm looking at this thing, did you find anything that was bad? Because I was struggling.
I mean, I don't want to say it was bad, but I can tell you that this article that I read that I picked for the bad section was an article about was laying out Rosales and Gordon. The name of the topic was Success in the Borderlands, Measuring Success for Underrepresented and Misrepresented College Students. And in it, the problem statement is thoroughly unpacked in the introduction, right? But that's the problem. The purpose is in there somewhere and it's not necessarily talked about, but the question, like the research question, is nowhere to be found. Right? Nowhere to be found. where the other ones that I went through, and I think to Juan's point, at least for me, they were pretty quick, right? And I guess I'll just get it out the way. That purpose statement for the one, it was in the very beginning. It was in the very first sentence of the abstract. As a matter of fact, it started out, the whole thing started out saying the purpose of this is ...
Yeah.
right? Here's the problem ... Later on in the actual first introduction, in the introduction, there was the, the question, the research question, but it was all pretty much obvious. So I was able to find something that was very blatant, great, and the other one was maybe not so great.
Well, going back to, again, like, what is the point of research? The point of research, and I think this is something we kind of get to this week as well, is like, there's already studies happening, and we're learning, with qualitative, we're learning about experience, but we're drawing on information that's already there, on research that's already been done. And the purpose of that research is not to read every word. We're going to write these beautiful papers, and probably our abstract and our purpose statement, as Toni has noted several times, a quick overview of our method, and then our discussion, of this gigantic thing we're going to write. What's really going to be relevant is maybe 3 pages of it to someone else in the research. But everything else is validating and emphasizing that they should trust the information, that we've done the work. And maybe if part of their research is they're going to use the same method, they're going to look at that a little more closely to kind of see and critique or build upon what you have done. But for the most part, if you're going through and you're just one book on someone's library, they're going to read the abstract, they're going to read the outcomes, and then they're going to note your methods, and then they'll come back to you if they use that. So I think that's the other piece when thinking critically about other articles, is at this point I really don't have one, because I was like, if it's not relevant to my work or what I'm spinning around thinking about researching, I just don't pursue it. Like, there's I'm not so honed in on my idea yet that I need to suffer through bad ones. For me, some of the method or some of the writing piece, because I am a student of that now, to be able to kind of be clear, that's kind of interesting to me now and important. Once I get a topic, it's going to be irrelevant. I'm not going to read anything. I'm just going to, this one says this one says this, and you assume if it's peer reviewed at a certain point, you're not looking through and you're kind of believing them that they did the work. So,
that's the thing I struggled with, but it's like, yeah, even if you go through our the DCCL, database and whatnot, like, yeah, you figure they're all going to be good, right? But then you start looking at them and you're like, that wasn't as clear as it could have been. But it was probably clearer than it was when they started. But yeah, so I'm, it's kind of like a cautionary tale in a way. It's like, where I think I'm being very clear, but then when putting on someone else's hat, it's like, oh, that is not very clear. I mean, one of them, I struggled finding one, but the one I did find, it was like, okay, I don't know, what is their goal with this? Like, it's there, but I don't know it. It was about baccalaureate degrees in community colleges, and it was just like, it reminded me of how I wrote my intro to the one that Dr. B was like, get to the point quicker, and I'm like, oh, this is what she meant, like, because it's all this backstory stuff, and like, just get to the point that can address whether or not this is good for me. So I definitely see the importance of that, but also it reminds me of what like Dr. Washington said, you're going to learn to read the literature very fast. You're not going to read the whole thing. And I know what he meant by that, but that's what it is right there. You're going to learn to figure out what is pertinent and what isn't, and I think that's just part of this process.
I'm sorry, are you done? Okay, I'm sorry. So I started reading 2 different dissertations, and I kind of feel bad for saying this, but one of the ladies that's in my chapter for my sorority with me was like, oh, read this dissertation, it's hers, and I really don't like it. And I felt like compared to other dissertations I've been reading, I felt like she didn't get to the point fast enough for me. And I was looking at that. I'm like, I read more of it because she asked me to like give her feedback because I asked her to help me. So she's like, well, she kind of did the whole read mine and then give me feedback and we'll see like if we can align kind of thing. So, and I felt like it took her too long to get to the point versus this other one I started reading that more aligns with what I want to pursue for my writing. She got right to the point. Her abstract told us what she's going to study. Her first page told us what she's going to study. It's like every page is like, this is the study. This is the study. This is the problem question. This is the problem we're trying to address. Here's the problem. Here's the research. Here's the research questions. So like constantly telling me what she's doing. And I felt like the person that I met personally, I read hers, like I said, it's not terrible, but it just didn't get to the point fast enough for me. I felt like you asked me to read it. Don't be mad if I critique it. So we shall see. We shall see. But yeah, she probably will not be on my committee.
All right. Well, do we feel like we've covered that? That seemed like that went fast. We got the what do you think? Well, why do you think it's important? We got, have you encountered research that was good? And have you encountered research where the introduction focus of the study was clearly communicated or wasn't clearly communicated? I don't know. How you folks feel?
I think there's one thing that we kind of didn't quite get to, but
Okay.
I'll summarize because I think we're all kind of hinting at it. With the research that we, like Toni's description, when we started to read it, there was this sense that we didn't really know why right away this was being written. So like the urgency to tell the audience why you have pursued this study really needs to be immediate. And so I think that that's when that is missing, particularly when you have something that might be 10 pages long, single spaced, like, and you're just trying to, kind of plug into what the discussion is amongst researchers. It's just frustrating. It's not fun to read. It's not something you step away with knowing. And so one good key that we're suggesting, how would we begin our research, is Trice said this, the abstract even begins with the purpose of this study is.
Yeah.
And so we all kind of agree that that's like, it's better to be too to the point than to obfuscate a little bit, because then people won't get to the heart of what you've done.
Yeah, I think the key with that too is that we assume that people want to read this, and if we don't give them a reason to read it, that assumption is not going to play out.
Oh, I think that's such a good point.
I would add this too. I'm thinking about these various ones that I've read really quickly, and it's like, okay, so opposite of, in the very first sentence, the purpose of this is this, right? Here's the purpose statement, here's the problem, and then here is a research question. We're going to do all this based around a research question. Oftentimes too, what you see, and I think I was starting to do this too, is, hey, we all know that bottles of water and the bottles and the plastic is causing a problem, right? So we get all this background stuff, right? Yeah. So I do think there's a balance, and there's a fine line of being able to articulate that piece, but then still being succinct and going right in. Because I see that a lot too. There's a lot of backstory and elaboration up front. And because of that, that's why we're here, right? That type of thing. Yeah.
I agree, because sometimes, like Juan mentioned, we can't assume that they want to read our paper. We also can't assume that they know the backstory either. So, like I was reading from chapter 6, it was like you need to make sure your reader knows the issue you're trying to solve, but also you don't want to, like we got been discussing, we also want to make sure we tell the issue. We don't want to give it away either the first page. We need to say this is the issue, And if you continue reading, you can continue to find out why this is the issue. So,
Oh, that's such a good way to explain that. Creswell kind of specifically stated that you do have to have a little bit of literature in those first couple paragraphs because that's what orients this is where my piece is fitting the Lego wall we're building
Yes,
on this
that part.
topic.
Yes.
And so yep, I think Toni, you just hit that on the head. And so there and you kind of introduced this, Trice, is this idea of a small lit review, not the methods piece, not the real detail, when this started, how the babies were made. No, just like as of right now, I'm responding and I'm anchoring into this discussion that is contemporary. And so that's where I'm plugging my information in. Like that's the urgent piece that comes between the purpose and then your research statement or whatever. So. All right.
Love it. Did you say the babies were made? Did you say that?
Well, I mean, like in the dawn of time, there
I
were
just wanted to make sure I heard that. So, okay, sorry. That's awesome. That
So,
is absolutely.
we could either leave this in or stop recording. But I have a funny story about that with my 6-year-old, because my 9-year-old told him that his friend said that